I think that is a big piece of the future, is this live selling piece. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Cards and Content. This will be the very first episode we've ever done without a guest. I know some of you are going to be disappointed. I promise we've got guests coming soon, but we are going to try to provide some good value and insight on this episode with a Q&A. We did get some really good questions, so I'm excited to share those. And then it is a big release week, so we will get into that as we wrap up this episode. But full-blown Q&A on this one. But again, do not worry. We have some really cool guests lined up. We're actually going to get in this point here soon where we should be able to stack a bunch of these. We've got some big-time guests coming, obviously some ones I'm super excited to share, some I'm sure people are not expecting. So excited to get into those here in the coming weeks. But for this week, Q&A, and we're going to get into that in a second. But we got to start with the usual. Got to keep this consistent here. The one thing on my mind today, and I hinted at it earlier with a big release week. The one thing on my mind today is definitely cash flow. This is one of the questions we're going to get into here in a little bit later. Talks about, the card shop and best and worst things. This is going to be a little play off of that. But I think one of the things that is often overlooked in what goes into running a card shop is the cash flow and the ups and downs of this. And I think this is one of those things that I know I was not prepared for, especially as we've grown, but especially early on when I was trying to start out and build this. We're in that time now where releases are plentiful. There is a lot of product. We always end these podcasts with what's coming out. And when you guys say it at the end, it is a full-blown segment on there's some crazy stuff coming. And I think this is a challenge. I know it's a challenge. I live it, where sometimes there's weeks where you don't have as much, you don't have expensive stuff, and you're able to, kind of manage a little bit better and honestly save for some of these times where you get into weeks like this, right? So think of some of the things we've had recently that have come out that require capital. You've had, just from Topps alone, Topps 3 basketball that came out this past week. Big time basketball release, more than $500 a box on the market. Bigger release. It's got Victor autos in it. Then you have Inception football. Honestly, one of my favorite products in a long time. Topps did a phenomenal job with this. There's usually 1 to 3 quarterback autos per case. It's only an $8 case. It's under $400 a box currently. Give Topps a ton of credit. It was awesome. Not a lot of vet autos. I think they did a fantastic job with it. I was a really big fan. But then you've got, a lot of other products. You've got Finest Formula One. We have some Panini football. Brian, can you pull up the release calendar in here? We've had Panini football. We've had a lot of things coming out recently, like Deca just came out. Like, we bought Prism Deca, and you've got first off the line products that have dropped in the last couple days. NT Racing, National Treasures Racing, Optic Football drops, I believe, today, probably right when this podcast is live. Optic Football will be live. You'll have Phoenix Football, FOTL, dropped on Friday. You're at this point when, like, if you're like us, where we break, we're live on Whatnot a ton every week. That's not a secret. We sell on our website, we sell in shop, we sell in all these places, and the cash flow on some of those things, on top of running a business, buying singles, payroll, those things. I don't say it as a complaint. It's just, I think, one of those challenges that's often overlooked with a card store. We bought NT first off the line racing. We bought Phoenix FOTL. We bought Prism Deca cases. We buy those products from Topps. We, will likely buy a case or two of Optic FOTL. And again, some people say, well, those things aren't required, for sure, but those are some of the best products. Like, this is the challenge of owning a store, and breaking is, it's the name of the game now, is you want to have the things that are limited, scarce, in demand. You want to have the popular products. Every breaker, every card shop would tell you that. Like, you want those things. On top of Pokemon, on top of Lorcana, TCG, right? Products from Leaf, other products. I think, like I said earlier, singles, payroll, like some of those, like when you mix all of these things together, sometimes you just get into the ebbs and flows of running the business, and you've got weeks where you're buying an insane amount of product at one time. And I think that's one of the more interesting pieces when you go through some of these weeks where it's a little bit more steady, and then you just get hit with a boom, 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 3 FOTL products, 3 big releases from Topps, multiple Panini hobby products. You just get into it and you're like, sheesh, it's a lot. So that's one of the things we've been kind of working through lately is just, you're trying to predict some of these things so you can be prepared for them. Things change. I think that's one of the, that would be my point is I think that is often overlooked with the running a card show or running a card shop piece is, some of the cash, the capital required to, provide a lot of the products, breaks, singles, all of those things. It is definitely a challenge and can take some getting used to because some of the bills required to pay some of those products come with a sticker shock for sure. So something we're still learning every day, but definitely the one thing on my mind today. Now, we solicited questions on IG, so shout out to everybody who submitted a question. If you guys are not following on the Cards and Content IG page, make sure you guys are checking that out. Anytime we post for Q&A, it always gets posted on there alongside my CardCollector2 personal account. So if you guys are ever looking to get a Q&A question in, that's where we solicit them. I'm sure this will be something we'll do in the future, but shout out to everybody who submitted one so far. We got a bunch of good ones. We try to narrow it down without making this 5 hours. We wanted to try to provide some good value on these, so try to pick the best questions. So if you submitted, even if you're not on here, I appreciate you. Hopefully we can get all to all of those questions in future episodes. But let's just get right into it here. Let's see. You just want to go in order, Brian? All right, let's start with crazy card breaks. When buying cards on eBay, how do you flip them at a show when you have the last comp? This is a really good question. We could talk about this for an entire episode. I will say, as someone who buys and sells so much from a lot of different places, I think what my answer would be on this is comps are not everything. I feel like I have a good idea of the things we're buying and how I feel they will sell. And sometimes I agree with comps completely and think that's great. Sometimes I think comps are low and there's opportunity to grow, and those are things we look to buy. And sometimes I think comps are high and, I wouldn't buy it. The Joe Milton, Gold Kaboom we talked about last week, $10,000. I think that's crazy. I wouldn't buy that, but that's what the comp is. So I think the comp is a piece of it. The comp is not everything. I also think one of the biggest things about buying cards now that is overlooked in this equation is, he says when buying cards, or he or she says, when buying cards on eBay, how do you flip them at a show when you have the last comp? eBay is a small piece of this, but there's other things that go into this. One, auction, title, photo, time of day. A lot of those things go into there. I buy on eBay all the time and flip cards. I have an example I brought up for this. It's not selling at a show, but it says, how do you flip them at a show when you have the last comp? I don't necessarily know that the show piece of this makes a difference on the question, but I look at it as how do you buy on eBay to flip cards? On February 3rd, I bought a dual auto, Rose Lavelle, Mallory Swanson. It was on auction. It was a dual numbered to 10. I paid $158.49 on that card. Sold it on ComC. Check out my cards. On April 9th for $275. After fees, that netted $261. So roughly $100 on a $158 purchase. It is definitely doable. The nice thing about the card market now, it's a pro and con in different ways, it's got pros and cons in different ways, is there's so many places to buy cards, right? we did the Whatnot Card Show a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this last week. So 9,300 orders. Those are not comps that are actively put into the market. Some things went low. Jaden Daniels Kaboom sold, PSA 10 sold for 3,900. That would be one of the lowest comps recently. There's comps over $6,000 on that card. The Rose Lavelle Sucker card I bought, the dual, that sold for 158 on auction. We sold it for 275. There's a lot of things that go into it. Many places to buy cards. The rarity and the scarcity of the item. How available is another one. So case hits is a great one because case hits are so in demand now in the market. Not every single case hit, not every single Jaden Daniels PSA 10 Kaboom has sold for $6,000. There's I think there's a $4,400 comp, a $5,500 comp, a $6,000. It just takes one person. That's the thing, is you need one person to buy the card. So I think when I look at it, I'm not necessarily buying a base Prism PSA 10 that's more common and expecting to flip that. I think the easy answer is probably saying I'm looking to buy something a little bit more unique, a little bit more rare, so the price has a little bit more volatility in it, and there's a little bit more upside on that. But Brian, can you go back to that? For instance, the Jaden Daniels Kaboom, $41.49. There is a $3,800 sale. There's a $41.50. They've come down a little bit, actually, so I'm surprised by this, because when we bought it in Dallas 3 weeks ago, I don't know when that was, there was a $6,000 comp when we bought the card. Now there's comps at $3,800. So right there, $6,000. Fanatics Weekly, $6,000 on March 9th. $5,100 comp, $4,900 comp, $4,850. My cards fluctuated 30% in a month. So that's another piece of this, is the market changes a lot. So I think comping, this is a much bigger question, much bigger conversation, but scarcity, multiple places to buy cards, multiple places to sell cards. Again, when you buy on Instagram, when you buy on Twitter, when you buy on Discord, when you buy on Whatnot, when you buy on a lot of those places, those comps don't exist. They're not on the market. So buying on eBay, I realize you have that exact comp. Again, if you buy a case hit, sometimes breakers and repackers will pay 110%. There are people out there that pay 110%. I want to be open about this. There are definitely people out there that pay 110% on case hits. So that might be a business idea right there. Buy a case hit and sell it to a repacker and make 10%, and spend $10,000 a week. It's $1,000. Spend $1,000 a week, $100, right? Like $100 a week, $400 a month. That's almost $5,000 a year flipping case hits. So I think there's a lot of potential there. I wouldn't, again, I know this says, what do you recommend? It doesn't say, what do you recommend buying? But I don't think I would say buy base Prism PSA 10s and expect to, flip those and get them on there. I think there's a little bit more of buying the things that are more in demand, or are a little bit more scarce and have less, pop up less. I think that's a bigger piece. All right, I think we can knock off the next question here as well. PEX Collects said $100 or less to spend. What's the best way to flip for a profit in a week or less from buying cards? One of the best ways I think to buy is from consignment sellers. We do this a lot. I think it's a fantastic way to buy cards. There's two. I'll give you the first one is definitely buying from consignment. So think of any big time seller on eBay who sells 500 to 5,000 plus auctions a night. They combine shipping. A lot of them max out shipping. So you can buy 40 auctions and pay $8.95, $10, whatever the number is, from a lot of these, consignment sellers, and get things in bulk at combined shipping. Because when you think about it, if I'm on there buying one card that's got a $4.99 shipping charge and it's $2, okay, well, I got to pay $6 to get it. But if you have a flat shipping rate at $8.95 or $10 just for easy math, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to buy 50 items, that's 20 cents per item. You're buying it for $2. You're in it at $2.20 versus $6. That's 3 times the price, right? There's a lot more margin when you're buying bulk. Bulk is always usually my answer in a question like this is buying in bulk. The consignment one is a great one. Or again, going back to the point we made earlier in the first question, is there's a lot of places to buy cards, places that don't have comps. Instagram, Twitter, Discord, Whatnot is a big one. There's boatload of people selling auctions on Whatnot. Sometimes if the views aren't there, there's opportunity to go into some of those rooms and buy auctions. Like I can tell you, there are nights we run auctions and cards that should go for 20 go for 4, and cards that should go for 4 go for 20. There's opportunity there to buy stuff at deals when people are, sleeping on some stuff. There's a lot of opportunity that goes into that. So I would tell you that if I'm looking to buy, I'm looking at either the multiple platforms, trying to find something that doesn't show up as a comp. Again, going back to that first question, buying on eBay in bulk from a consignment seller. Another one is like card shops, card shows. Again, if you have $100, like card shows, value boxes, same thing with your LCS. There's definitely a lot of opportunity in value boxes there. Like we say there's a lot. Like those are the last things usually to get repriced. If a card shop's going to price things, they're going to price their showcase cards first, not their value box stuff. A lot of opportunity there. Same thing at a card show. There's a lot of vendors in one room. You got $100. Opportunity, opportunities are plentiful there. So that would be my answer. Sunny Boy Comics. While trying to work out a deal, has it ever not worked out while filming a video? I think this is one of those things we see comments for all the time. As I think some people assume that because you have a camera that you get insane deals and every deal gets done and it's always easy. Like this happens all the time. Like there are a lot of deals we don't get done. We don't put those deals in videos. Like the point is to go to a card show and make deals, not to not make deals. So if a deal doesn't work out, yeah, like it happens. And I think that's the thing is like, I know this is cards and content. So like a trick for us, like one thing we've done over the years is there's some deals where it's like, normally I would tell myself like when I'm negotiating, like this is my number, I'm going to walk away. Sometimes there's just, the show hasn't been amazing. We haven't made a bunch of deals. We need a piece of content. We're there. We're filming. Like we're invested into this show and this moment to film and to get content. Sometimes we'll say, normally I wouldn't pay, an extra $40 on this deal, but we haven't made a lot of deals. We need the deal. All right. Right. And you'll take a little bit more risk hoping it works out. And, the fact that it helps piece together that video. So I would say it's also the other way where it's like sometimes we've had to stretch it and like take a chance we might not normally take depending on how it's gone. But yeah, like trying to work out a deals that ever not worked out all the time. It happens way, way more than you might think. Doesn't always work out. But yeah, I would say if I had to guess out of 10 deals, it's pretty high. It's 8 or 9 out of 10 get done. It's pretty rare these days that one doesn't get done. But I'm also, again, this is just another tip or trick. Like I'm normally pretty strategic if we start the deal. Like if I start to talk and ask about cards, I usually will have something in mind that I would want to deal for beforehand, right? So if you go up and you see 5 showcases, in my head, before I say anything, I am putting in my brain the cards I'm looking to acquire. This card, this card, this card. Okay, these are the ones that stand out to me as things I think are priced well, things I would have use for or interest in. So I'm trying to build that deal in my head before I'm usually speaking on it. So if we start a deal, sometimes I'll ask about 2 cards to see if the seller has any room, because if they have some room, okay, then I'm going to build on that. If they don't have any room, okay, well, maybe I just find the things I'm a little bit more serious about. So it just depends, but normally I'm not going up and asking on 50 cards. I've kind of learned that over the years. It's easier to start small and to build a deal. Like it's easier to start with 3 cards and then add 3 more, and then add 3 more, than it is to start with 9. Because if there's 1 card we're off, it's easier to see that in a 3-card deal than it is to see that in a deal with 9 cards. So that's one of the things I've learned over the years is just start small and work your way up rather than just go for the, massive deal in the beginning and be off on 2 cards and the whole deal fall apart. It's just easier to slowly build your way there. So simple answer, yes, it definitely has not worked out while filming a video. My guy Jacob's got a question. 8th Wonder cards. So shout out to Jacob. He was one of the first people we ever did a deal with on camera. Shout out to my guy Alex. We flew down to shout out to my guy Austin. We flew down to Houston Brian's pulling up the deals now. It's got to be one of the oldest ones. You think it's that high? Brian's looking on YouTube now, so I'm talking and watching him film, or him scroll on YouTube. But we flew to Houston to do a deal with Jacob. Was it 45,000, Brian? Is that the number? We ended up doing a video on it not too long ago. Just search like Control F Houston. There it is. Is it 40,000? Yeah, it says my $40,000 sports card purchase on YouTube. When was it uploaded? I'm trying to find September 7th, 2020. So 4.5 years ago, we flew down to Houston, did a deal with him in the hotel. He was using the money to buy a beach home. And it's funny, we did a video on this sometime in the last 6 months, and it was like, how's this collection looking? And if we saw it during like peak COVID, it was like, we should have sold it and made a bunch of money. Unfortunately, we did not do that. We kept it, and it was basically up or down $1,000, $2,000. I don't remember the exact numbers, but Jacob ended up we talked about it in the video, but he ended up selling the beach house and had made money on the beach house. But it was just a funny full circle moment. So shout out to Jacob for that. He's been someone we've dealt with for a while, so check him out. But he said, how do you decide between PC versus card shop when buying cards? This is extremely hard. Way more thought goes into this than you would imagine, and it's definitely one of the things that I struggle with, especially because we've heard it before. Occasionally we hear about it, where it's like, I collect Ohio State, really cool Ohio State stuff. I have an Ohio State PC that is probably the favorite part of my collection. Ohio State football, if you know me, it means a lot to me. So I love Ohio State football, and I'm also 20 minutes away from Ohio Stadium. So when I buy really cool Ohio State stuff, it's, hey, is this going to go out for sale and shop? And it's hard because I want to collect the cards people want to buy. There's Ohio State's probably one of the largest fan bases for college football teams. So that is a tricky balance of what do you sell versus what do you keep? Because I want to keep every cool Ohio State card, but I also want to have really cool cards in my shop where people want to come in and buy them and visit us and, talk Ohio State football cards. So it is definitely a challenge. It's definitely not a perfect recipe, and full transparency, something I struggle with for sure. It is hard wanting to keep, and be a collector, because I collect cards. I'm very open about that. I collect cool stuff. I love collecting cards. But I also am a business, and they currently paid the bills, and I think that is something I've struggled a lot with, and will continue to try to adjust that to make it better, but definitely not an easy thing to do for me. Some people are different, and it's just cardboard and they want to sell, and for me, it's like, oh, I can tell you why I liked this guy at this time, and I remember this moment, so I want to keep that card, and definitely hard. So working on it, but not easy. All right, Kane Tenery 1034. What's the best deal you got on a card? So nothing stands out as like, hey, this person gave me an insane deal. I would say the best deal I've gotten on a card, just for the sake of context, is like, we found a Ted Johnson 1997 Skybox rubies in a quarter box, or 50-cent quarter. I think it was quarter box. I think it was quarter, 5 for $1. So shout out to that 20-cent box. At the Dallas Card Show back in like 2021. I'm gonna guess this was probably post. Was it, Brian? Would have been post national. Yeah, it's probably post national, because we ended up selling the card in auction. We found it on Card Ladder, and it sold in October of 21. And there's usually a show Halloween weekend, so it would have been the one before that. So it would have been like the August show, likely post national Dallas. Found it for a quarter, and it sold for 100 and was it 132? 132.49 on auction. So there's more recent sales. Brian actually found some that sold in October of 21. The most recent sales in 2023 did 511. So might probably should have kept that one a little bit longer. There's a 495 for a PSA 9 Pop 1, and then a raw one sold in December of 2023 for 511. So Sounds like we sold that one. Could have been a quarter into $500, but still a quarter into 132. It's definitely a win. So that stands out as like one of the best deals. Again, don't have anything that stands out like best deal I've ever gotten on something. Intentionally, that seems like one of those finds. Like there was a couple Dallas card shows. It was that we found the quarter card in the value box, sold for 132, and then I think it was the next show or the show prior, we found the 101 in a value box, and it was Trayvon is it Mooring? It was a TCU player, and I gave it away to a guy that super collects. I think it's Trayvon. I gave it away to a guy that super collects, and Brian's trying to find the video now, so I'm looking off to the side here as he scrolls through YouTube. But it was a 101 like Trayvon Mooring in a dollar box, and I bought that and gave that away. So I won't use that as like the best like thing ever, but that was definitely a solid find. So a couple Dallas card shows that have produced winners. Samuel Bornman, how did you go from full-time job to creating content and owning your own shop? I've told this story a couple times. I don't know if I've ever done it like publicly, like in this setting before. So this is a fun one. I'm excited to share. I had, I've talked a lot about Gary Vee and what Gary meant to my journey. I worked at a community college in Ohio, and was doing some like data entry. Had 2 computer screens. One was Gary Vee and his content, and one was data entry. And this is when Instagram was starting to blow up, and so this would have been probably like 2017. And I got super big into Gary's content. I was very inspired by like one life, no regrets. You don't want to be 80 wishing you ever did this. And I have collected cards every day, not one day off since 2006. I am in this for the long run. I have done this every day, and I love sports cards. Very open about that. And I was spending all my time at this job I hated, and was like, I want to do this full time. I want to do this full time. I was running some breaks, and shout out to everybody. This was back when Razzes were a thing. If you know about Razzes. That was a big deal on IG Live in some of the early days. That was crazy. So back in those days, it was, I was flipping stuff, and I was like, I want to do this full time. I was going to shows. I was hustling. I was working full time, going to school full time, and Reg and I were, we had just started living together. And I was flipping. I was like, I want to do this. We got engaged in February of 17. And, I told her, I was like, I want to quit my job and do this full time. And we kind of made it an agreement that I was going to pay for the wedding by flipping sports cards. This was kind of like our agreement. I would pay for that as a like proof of concept that this could work. This could be a full-time career that I would have to budget, and I would have to manage, and I would have to be smart, and I would have to learn to use that money to pay for other things, to pay for life, to pay for expenses. And long story short, did that proof of concept, put my 2 weeks in right before I left for my wedding, took my honeymoon, and I was out. I was gone. In October of 18, I started full-time into this. And that was October of 18. March, it was like, let's say April for time context. April of 2019, I got approached by my LCS at the time. Was like, hey, I'm going to move. Want to sell the card shop. Do you want to buy it? And it's like, I'm not sure if he's serious or not. Not, we'll see. Got asked again 2 weeks later. This time it was probably a month later. It was probably early May. It was like, hey, want to sell. Do you want to buy? Had conversations with Andy Albert at Indy Card Exchange and Ryan Bannister at RBI Crew 7, Missouri. Andy's in Indy. Ryan's in Missouri. Check them out. Great people. Great humans. And I called them. A couple people I've looked up to for a while that run successful, great card shops. Got some advice. Ended up buying it. Bought the shop like March 21st. Bought it. Turnkey. Closed for five days. Completely remodeled. I think it was like March 26th. I get the dates mixed up. 26th, 28th, 29th. Basically end of March 2019. Opened the card shop a couple days later. So definitely a journey, but it was one of those things. I went through the proof of concept first before taking that leap. That was one thing I was really, really big on is, you think you can do it. You think you can really do those things. But if, I was really big on, like, I want to show myself, and I had to show my wife that this is what I can do and this is how I can do it. And when you've got to manage money and you've got to pay yourself and, you've got taxes to save for, and, like, if you're really going to do it the right way, it's a full-blown business, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of planning, and you have a lot less free time. And that was one thing I learned, is I wanted to be great at it, and I spent a lot of time and effort to do that. But it, I didn't expect to buy a card shop 6 months in. I figured, hey, one day I'll own a card shop and retire there and enjoy life, in my later years. And if I made $35,000-$45,000, this was better than working in a corporate world at a job I hated. I just got to collect ball cards all day. That's all I wanted. So, I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to be here today, but definitely was a journey. The 50 card line, I promise you these questions are not from burner accounts, because I love this question. It says, how excited are you for the first ever Grove City Cardfest? I mean, this is a lob. This is a free shameless plug here. I promise I don't know the 50 card line, and I did not ask him to ask this question, but it says, again, how excited are you for Grove City Cardfest? So Grove City Cardfest is a card show. Brad, B Sports, and I will be putting on at Central Crossing High School. It's 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes from the shop. Our shop here in Grove City, super, super close. Sunday, May 4th, 8 a.m. is early bird admission, $5. 9 a.m. Regular show hours, $2 admission. Again, show admission will go towards Central Crossing Band fundraiser. But excited is an understatement. I think there's an opportunity to really put on big time shows here in Columbus, Ohio. This is the start of one. This will likely be a couple times a year. I'm going to guess 4 to 8. Brad and I will see what that looks like. But if I had to guess right now, 4 to 8 times a year. This is going to be something we're going to turn into a really, really, really cool card show. Obviously, I think there's an opportunity for more in Columbus, but I think for now this will be a good one. A lot of Pokemon. There'll definitely be some Pokemon there, some TCG, but a lot of sports card dealers. We've got some big time names so far. A lot of good people will be there supporting the show. Excited to continue to build the dealer list, but yeah. A card show is something I've wanted to run for a long, long time, and to have something this cool, this close to our card shop is an ideal. Again, I talked about it before. That's the shop anniversary weekend. Not the shop I first ever opened, but it would be the new location when we moved. We moved in 2021. May 4th is when we opened, so May the 4th be with you. Shout out to my Star Wars fans. But that's the shop anniversary weekend. That's like shop anniversary opening day. So it'll be cool to run a card show on that, and know that May 4th is the first time I ever ran the Grove City Card Fest, and the first time we ever opened the card shop. That May 4th day is becoming super special in our company's history. So yeah, excited would be an understatement. So hopefully, if you're listening, you'll make an appearance, and we'll see you there. But yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Hilliard Hits, my guy. Where do you see the hobby in the next 5 years? This is a really good question. Obviously, I'm super optimistic about this industry for a multitude of reasons. If I look ahead for 5 years, what do I see in the hobby 5 years from now if we play this out? One, breaking and live selling continue to be major. Don't see either one of those going away anytime soon. They are a big, big piece of the hobby, and that is something that will continue to grow. Fanatics has, Fanatics Live. You've got, Whatnot. You've got a lot of live selling apps. So I think those, there's a couple of them. but I continue to see the breaking and the live selling piece. I say live selling, like breaking's not live selling. Like breaking is definitely the live selling piece, but I mean the live selling, like going live, auctioning cards, just being able to buy cards, rather than like a eBay 7-day auction. I think it will be a lot more, we go to a card show, we go to the Dallas Card Show, and on Friday night, after a long 8-10 hour day in Dallas, we go up to the hotel room and we're live on Whatnot selling everything we got that day. I think that is a big piece of the future, is this live selling piece. I think card shows are also a big piece of this. I think people love going to big, well-run card shows and transacting in person for a multitude of reasons. One is that face-to-face human interaction piece. Two, being able to see the cards in person, checking condition, those kind of things. And then three, the content. I think the content thing is a big thing. Obviously, I've been a believer in that for a long time. Filmed at a national 4+ years ago. It is definitely something I believe in. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all big places where content is growing, and there will continue to be more. But I think content is here to stay. Obviously in general, yet alone in this space. So the one thing I'm hesitant on, or I'm curious on how it plays out in the long term, is autograph exclusive deals with athletes, licensing exclusive deals with leagues. I think if you ask anybody, I don't know if anybody's the right word, most people in the hobby, outside of like Panini, Fanatics, Leaf, the companies, and maybe a few others, autograph exclusive deals and licensing exclusive deals are not good for the end consumer. If everybody had the licensing and everybody had every athlete, there's more competition in the market. There's more incentive for these companies, Topps, Panini, Leaf, any of them, to produce better products. For sure, 100%, we would have better products. We'd have more competition if that was the case. If Topps and Panini could both produce licensed NFL, NBA, MLB trading cards, I think you would have better overall products and more of an incentive to sell, more of an incentive to create a better product for the market. Now, there's definitely risk in that. Do you get more products because they can both produce it, and then you have a mass influx of product on the market anyways? It's not like we have a shortage of products now. It's not like we just talked about the opening segment in this podcast was cash flow and how much product is coming out and, managing that. So it's not like we have a shortage of product now. And it's not also to say that these companies are not doing big things. I loved the Ohtani 50/50 piece. That logo man sold for $1 million. The debut patch auto is incredible. The case hits Panini has produced in 10+ years in the market are the single best case hits in the entire market. Those early kabooms, we talked about it with Anthony last week about what the LeBron James kaboom sells for. I mean, it's a massive card. The golds Panini has produced from Prism and what that has meant. Color Blast, Downtowns, it's not to say that we don't have great things in the market. I just think if you look at it at scale, like Travis Hunter and Shadir Sanders just signed with Panini. Last year you had Bo Nix, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jane Daniels not have autographs in any Panini product. None. Went through the entire year with no licensed Jane Daniels autos. He will have 0 rookie autos. Now, whether Topps produces them later and just makes them as 24 when they get the licensing, or Panini ever has that ability, I have no idea. I can't predict the future, and I don't know the legality. I don't know how likely or available that even is. But at the moment, I will say it here and say it is factual. Jane Daniels has no licensed trading card autos. That's crazy. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think we could argue that, but I look at it as that is one of my concerns for the long run is, are the licensing deals and the autograph exclusive deals good for anyone outside of the companies? And I would tell you they are not better for the market right now. That is one man's opinion. You do with everybody's entitled to that. But if you ask me, I would tell you that those are the things. That is the thing I worry the most about is the exclusivity in the market. How will that affect product? How will that affect the quality and the end consumer? Obviously, I would sit here and tell you I want the best products available of the best players, and I think everybody wants that. But do we get that with those exclusivity deals? Not sure. So feel pretty optimistic about it with some, hindrances on what do those exclusivity deals from a licensing and an autograph player perspective mean for the overall market. Definitely going to be curious to watch that. But that is one thing I would love from you guys, whether that's on IG, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you can comment. I would love to understand what you guys think about the market over 5 years, what you like, what you don't like, what you're optimistic about, what you're not optimistic about. I think this is an opportunity to really have a conversation, and I'm curious what other people think. You guys might drop something I'm not even thinking about. Brian just showed me these comments, so this is not something I've had 6 days to prepare my answers for. This is supposed to be more just on the fly, and I would be curious because I'm sure I'm missing a piece in this, but that's what I would definitely want to know from you guys from this week. Last but not least, CardGeek44, best and worst parts of owning a shop. Talked about it in the beginning. One of the trickier parts, I don't know if it's like the worst. The trickier part is definitely the cash flow piece. Again, just you have huge highs, huge lows, just in terms of like the cash flow, managing that. I think one of the other things I think about a lot from like the, trickier part, not necessarily worst, trickier part of owning a card shop is the reordering piece and how that affects price. So let's say Topps Inception, this is a great example. I think market on that when it first came out was like sub 300. We'll just say for easy math, $300, right? That comes out, it's a $300 box. Well, you get X amount of it. Let's say we got 3 cases. So you get 3 cases of it, and you break one, sell some on your website, sell some in shop, right? You run out of that product. So you sell through what you have in shop. Well, getting it with like how product works now is you either got to buy it secondary, you got to wait for Topps, and oftentimes the second time you get the product, wherever you get that from, is not cheaper than you got it the first time. It's very rare that happens. So what you often have to do is you have to buy more of it. Price has gone up, demand is high, like you're selling through it. You have to pay more money to get it because you want to have it. Then the price goes up. And then if somebody comes in and is, hey, I paid $300 for this 5 days ago, why is it now higher? That's a tricky conversation. A lot of people are pretty reasonable and understand that. But then sometimes it leads to, your price gouging, it just leads to more uncomfortable conversation than I would, obviously prefer. Like, I think intention is good, but to have a product, I have to acquire it at a higher price or not have it, right? So it's that balance of, do you want to not have it? So when someone comes in and says, do you have Topps Inception? You're like, nope, we had it. It was a really good price. It's gone. Or do you want to say, yes, we got it. We had to pay more. It's now currently at market. We don't really have a crazy deal on it. We had to pay more to get it. So that's a balance that is hard. So the balancing piece here, you can see that with cash flow and product and reordering, and some of those equations can get off balance and can create complex situations with owning a shop. Best parts for sure, the people that we've been building it with won't ever change. That is definitely one of the more enjoyable parts about this. I wouldn't want to do this if it wasn't for the people that we get to build it with. The team we have here is awesome. I am very fortunate to have amazing people by my side to help build it. Will always be my number one answer. Won't ever change. Some of the other things with owning it, the community events. We run really, really cool trade days, trade nights. We've run 2 at Ohio State men's basketball games. We've run hobby rip nights. Gary V will be here on May 10th. That is something I'll never take for granted. The kids trade nights we run are special. Shout out to all of our young collectors who come out for those. Those are a lot of fun. I absolutely love doing that. So outside of building it with some of the best people on earth, it would definitely be the community events. I love doing that, and that's something I intend to continue for a while. Shout out to everybody for the questions this week. We got to get into the product that's dropping this week. It is insane, to say the least. You guys ready for this? This is crazy. Donruss EuroLeague Basketball, Phoenix Football, Topps Star Wars Masterworks, Topps Tribute Baseball, Leaf Seasons in the Sun Baseball, National Treasures Racing, Prism Premier League Soccer, Stars and Stripes USA Baseball, Cosmic Chrome Football, and Wild Card Dynamite Baseball. Couple of these I want to talk about because there's some big time releases this week. You've got Phoenix Football. This is one of my favorites. It's one of those products that has a lot of rookies, inserts, parallels, patches, autos. I love products where you don't require just an auto or a jersey to make your money back. You've got other opportunities to piece things together, and Phoenix looks like a higher-end Prism Mosaic Optic type brand with that chromium type card. A lot of shiny, reflective, refractor type stuff. Usually looks pretty good. So Phoenix, it's definitely a fun one. Star Wars Masterworks, one of the best Star Wars products on the market. I know they added Antiquities, I believe it's called, this year, much higher end Star Wars product, but Masterworks is usually one of the more premium Star Wars products. Fantastic product, $700+ a box currently on the secondary market. Big time Star Wars product. Tribute Baseball 2025. I am not the baseball expert. I know the 2024 class was really good. You obviously have Skeens and Ellie. Who's in 25? Who are the guys we're going to be looking for in there? Who should we be looking for? Tribute's obviously a really good product, but I would love to know who are some of the names we're looking for in there. Obviously, Topps has Ohtani, Trout, Skeens, and Ellie. I mean, that's 4 big-time names right there alone. But who else should we be looking for in Tribute, especially from a rookie perspective? But Tribute Baseball, great product. Fun one from Leaf. Leaf Seasons in the Sun Baseball. We were looking at this. You got on-card Paul Skeens autos. You've got memorabilia pieces of Cobb, Ruth, Mantle, Clemente. That's fun. And then potential cut signatures featuring baseball legends such as Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson, and more. So fun one from Leaf. Sub $250 a box. Pretty cool product there with some potential high-end chases. National Treasures Racing. A National Treasures product under $500 a box. Shout out to all my racing fans out there. Shout out to my guy BK, our NASCAR guy who loves this product. Get a box again. NT basketball and football is outrageous. You know, it's one of the best. Those are some of the best products on the market. They have insane demand, so it's always cool when you can see a National Treasures product for sub $500. Then you've got Cosmic Chrome Football. So a couple things about this. I don't believe Marvin had autos in Inception, but he does have autos on the checklist for Cosmic Football. So Marvin Harrison is signing in Cosmic Football. I believe the first one he signed in was Finest after his deal with Fanatics got finalized. And Tom Brady is featured in 2 different checklists in here. First Flight Signatures is the first one, and I think the other one's like Milky Way Marks. So Brady is in 2 different autograph sets in Cosmic. So to feature Brady, and then Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors. When you get those guys on a checklist, it leads to some opportunity. You've also got Elway, Montana, I think Dan Marino. Yep, Dan Marino, Bo Jackson, Brett Favre. So you got a lot of the big name vets, and then you got the 6 best rookies in the entire class, or 6 of the top 10. So a lot of potential there, but definitely a solid release week. And then I believe the week after, next week, we're going to get into Optic. I know Optic FOTL is supposed to drop today, which means it's likely coming out next week. So you're going to go Phoenix, Cosmic, Optic in a 10-day period. So definitely some big-time football coming out, and on top of everything else. So hopefully next week, we'll have a guest on the show. Excited to share that with you guys here soon. Shout out to those of you who made it through this one. Let us know your thoughts on the market 5 years from today. What do you guys think is going to happen? What are you optimistic about? Let me know your thoughts. But for now, that is all I got. Peace, guys.